Individuals have a right to the truth. The Caesars committed a crime against consciousness.
They reached into the minds of their subjects and planted false concepts to make them easier to control. And those crimes are not only historical, but are ongoing. Religions in Rome were not independent theological entities, but Roman bureaucracies whose purpose was crowd control.
Historian Josephus recorded that what most propelled the Jews to rebel was their belief in the coming of a Messiah. The real Messianic movement was, of course, militaristic. Rome had conquered the region, had a puppet family, the Herods, that were ruling Judea for them. They were taxing everything that moved.
The Roman Caesars insisted that the Jews worship them as gods. There was a rebellion led by the Messianic movement. To crush it, Rome sent its best general, Vespasian. He was from a powerful patrician family, the Flavians, that was determined to rule the Roman Empire. Vespasian knew how to destroy a religion. He had spent the last decade in Brittany and Gaul with his elder son Titus exterminating the Druids. They were scrubbed.
When the Jews rebelled, Nero turned to Vespasian and said, "Go down and clean this mess up." And Vespasian went down there, again bringing his son, Titus, and they waged war against the Messianic movement.
In the middle of the war, Vespasian returned to Rome to seize the throne. He left his son Titus at Jerusalem to finish with the destruction of the Messianic movement and to raise the temple. Once his father had seized the throne, Titus saw himself as the Son of God and demanded that the Jews call him Lord. They refused, even after being tortured.
The Jews were looking for someone who had the same power that David did. They could see that when military opponents were overwhelming Israel, that God would send them someone who had his power. You couldn't lose if you had the Messiah with you. Flavians and their intellectuals, many of whom were Jewish, worked to produce a new version of the Torah which had a Messiah that was pacifistic, asked people to turn the other cheek, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. The Roman Messiah. The character in the Gospels, Jesus Christ, the word Jesus means Savior. Christ is Greek for the Messiah. They definitely wanted this character to be seen as having been a Messiah and having existed in the past, so he'd already come, rather than everyone looking for him to show up, and that he was killed by the Jews.
With Christianity, the Flavians hoped to create docile, tax-paying subjects who did not need a standing army over them to maintain order. In the future, Christians would pay their taxes to the pontiff, which was simply another name for Caesar. The Flavians were proud of their invention and encoded into the Gospels a message to posterity. All of the events of Jesus' ministry were created as symbolic representations of the Flavians' military campaign through Judea. Jesus begins his ministry at the Sea of Galilee, where he tells his disciples that if they follow him, they will become fishers of men. That story was based on Titus's military victory at the Sea of Galilee, where he sank the Jews' fishing fleet and fished for men. We will show that the events of Jesus' ministry occur at the same location and in the same sequence as the events of Titus's military campaign that they represent. The Gospels were deliberately linked to the history of the Flavian military campaign written by Josephus. The Flavians intended for posterity to eventually realize that they had created Christianity. This is not a theory looking for evidence. The evidence exists, and it is about to be presented.